There are so many people in the spiritual community that really aren't taking care of their bodies. They're not really taking care of the temple that God gave them. They're not honoring it. And when we take the moment to really dress up for what we're doing, however that looks for you, you want to access an expression that your sovereign divinity feels good to you. You are an invitation. Are you the invitation that somebody is going to say yes to? If I stood up here feeling like I didn't want to be the invitation, you wouldn't be considering the invitation. It's just as simple as that. You are the invitation to other people's sovereignty, to their divinity. Is it going to be a joyful invitation? Or is it going to be weird and sideways? No one's going to take the weird sideways invitation. So accepting yourself as a vehicle of awakening for others, there's a lot of components to that we go into the Stargate II curriculum. But one is really relishing that you get to develop your professional embodiment. What your office feels like, what your platform feels like, what your brand feels like, what you look like. And leaning into the edges of uncomfortability where you're like, oh, but that's not spiritual. Oh, I don't know about that. They'll think I'm trying to be too sexy, or, oh, I have to look like a certain way for it to be spiritual. And it's just like, be curious. Invite yourself into those spaces and poke around at yourself. And be like, who am I in my spiritual leadership? I am the invitation. It's such a profound invitation to a self-love that goes to this other point, being seen as a living angel on earth. I did over 20 years of private coaching, channeling, mentoring clients until I had to stop. And one thing I saw over and over again were people that were creative geniuses, absolutely beautiful, loving, healing, radiant, talented, caring, generous people that pretty much borderline hated themselves. Have you noticed that with light workers? Willing to knock ourselves out, punish ourselves? Why is that? We talked about it last night. Who wants to share? Why is that? Yeah. Too much. And what happens if you're too much? Oh, dear. You'll be alone. Thank you. Who else? What happens? Why would you punish yourself for being an angel on earth? Go ahead, gentlemen. I'm sorry? Addiction. What is the root of addiction? Word. Shame. People are so ashamed of themselves because they've been programmed to be ashamed of their divinity and separated from their divinity. They're so ashamed to be free because we're programmed to be enslaved. Shame is so crippling, and I personally believe, which I shared and channeled in the Soul Power Journey curriculum, that shame is a construct of this Luciferian matrix. I don't even believe it's a real emotion. I don't believe it's in the actual spectrum of human emotion. I think you can feel terrified of shame. I think you can feel enraged about shame. I think you can feel grief about shame. But I think shame itself is a weapon that has been used against us, and that now we have internalized the punisher of this matrix programming, and then we use it to punish ourselves because we are so terrified of how shame is controlling us. It's a lot to take responsibility for. When you step into your sovereignty, you have to look at all the codependent ways that you've decided to hide from the shame instead of facing it, owning it, and saying, Satan be gone, shame has no place in my body. So that diamond light articulation of your message, Magdalene is going to be mentoring you beyond shame and into your sovereignty.